Throne and Liberty is a serviceable mobile game with combat that holds a weird space between tab target and action that manages to be somewhat satisfying to play. It is marred by a pay-to-win fueled progression system and time-gated grind, which further compounds the pressure to want to spend real money to progress. It is mind-boggling how they could spend a decade developing, changing, iterating, shifting, pivoting, trying to work on and improving the game while operating it like every other MMO cash grab in the last 20 years. I could sit here and talk about how Korean MMOs are bad because they have exploitive cash shops, predatory monetization, paid to convenience, but the sad truth is that most Western AAA titles employ the same tactics, just using different methods and marketing tricks.
Give me $1,000.
In any case, this monetization model is a sign that at some point, part of the gameplay loop will be extremely tedious and boring by design. A manufactured problem built to sell unwitting players the solution. A game like Throne and Liberty is not designed to be fun, it is meant to extract your time, money, and personal data to be sold to the highest bidder. If you enjoy tracking efficiency, using Excel spreadsheets, and joining raids on Discord to listen to what feels like a Teams meeting for the unemployed,
I'm just here for the ride.
Tankage back out of sewers. Tankage.
Do not kill this guy. Do not kill this guild leader right now. Do not kill this guild leader.
Okay, we ran all the way over here to run away.
But hey, that's just what most MMORPG PvE endgame is like. Throne and Liberty promised a return to large-scale MMO PvP battles with a bit of a fresh twist on movement and combat. But has it delivered on any of these things? Well, today I'm going to take a look at some of the aspects of that and share my experience playing this game during the Fresh Start Hyperboost server. It originally started as a sequel to Lineage. I believe it was called Lineage Eternal. It's being published in the West by Amazon. It released about a year ago initially. It was in development for almost over 10 years and saw several different iterations. They changed a number of things about the game, but finally they decided to release it as is. I mean, I think there was even talk at some point about it being changed to Unreal Engine 5, which that's not the case. It is on Unreal Engine 4 right now, and it looks pretty good on Unreal Engine 4. Instead of classes, your character is defined by which weapons they use, so you have quite a bit of freedom up front, but I'll get more into that later. The one gimmick for travel is some kind of shapeshifter in this game. You can transform into a wolf, a bird, or an otter if you want to swim. The game does have crossplay from PC to console, so the servers are actually pretty active, and it's pretty popular on Steam at the moment and on Twitch. The combat focuses on an active and mobile style of action combat. It was originally more of a tab target game where your animations locked you in place, but they changed that after they had a lot of negative feedback during the initial alpha and beta tests. The story is serviceable. I have to be honest, when I was doing the questing, I skipped through most of the dialogue that didn't have a cutscene associated with it, and it wasn't voice acted. And I felt I got a pretty good gist of it. But there were some smaller story set pieces that were pretty cool. There was a vampire storyline where you get your first guardian ability that I liked, and that was probably the standout for me. Visually, the worlds, some nice world building and some great design. Some of the zones, particularly the desert zone, which I'm playing through right now, looks really good. The progression system, I could go into a lot of detail about this, but to make it simple, you basically have to level up everything in the game. Your gear, your skills, your weapon abilities, everything requires materials or items to level up. So there's quite a bit of investment into which weapons you use. So once you start building towards a certain spec, you're kind of locked into that. You can't really switch on the fly. It just requires too much investment. So as I mentioned before, the initial options that you have to equip any weapon you want, it doesn't play out like that in a later game. Once you pick your two weapons, you're pretty much locked into that, and it requires a lot of resources to switch if you want to change your playstyle. For the end game, there's a lot of PvE stuff. There's dungeons, there's raids, There's quite a bit of PvP as well. The castle sieges is kind of the big thing that they were advertising initially, which is why guilds are so important, because it's very group focused. Endgame is very much the focus of this game. You need to kind of be in a guild and be an active participant in that. Sieges require a lot of coordination and have kind of the most meaningful content to them outside of, you know, dungeons and raids.
Let's go. Point three. Everybody fly. We are engaging them at point 3 and moving to point 4. We're engaging this.
So if you're playing as a solo player, you're going to probably find it difficult to progress, you know, later in the end game. It's definitely grindy. You know, the dungeons and raids can be a bit of a challenge, but I have seen some players able to solo them. So there is a niche if that's what you want to do, but it's not what the game is designed for. The monetization model for Throne and Liberty, you know, it is a free-to-play game. You can make it to endgame and get geared up and all that as a free-to-play player.
If I had to guess, because I also used some Steam gift cards, I probably spent about $15,000. This whole time I thought I spent 25 grand. I only spent about like 13.5 to 15.
But there's a lot of things that are going to be a hindrance to you along the way. Players who do pay obviously gain an advantage over other players because they're able to progress faster. There were some glitches and server problems. I've experienced a few bugs and like glitches. I don't know how bad that problem is at endgame because I'm not there yet, but I have heard that there was some problems with cheating and everything too earlier. And I don't know if that's been resolved with this fresh start server. I haven't seen anything too like flagrant or obvious, but just something to be aware of. Overall, I think the game is visually impressive. I like the art style. I like how your character, you know, the weapons that you use, you don't have to switch weapons. You just press your skill for your secondary weapon, you do that attack, and you go back to using your main weapon. So for example, I'm using greatsword and daggers right now, and I can use my dagger abilities, and then it just goes right back to using my greatsword. So it's pretty like smooth for the combat, and it's pretty satisfying to use. It, you know, it does get a little repetitive, but I think if you want that action sort of combat feel, that it does those things pretty well. Overall, I think Throne and Liberty has some nice features going for it. It has the good visuals, good art style, interesting mechanics with morphing into animals and the way your weapons work, the big group PvP, the emphasis on playing with the guild, playing with the other players, and the social aspect is pretty strong, but it is held back a bit by how the pay model encourages pay to win. It requires a significant time investment and dedication. I've heard that if you are not regularly logging in to play with your guild and do those big events, you'll lose your spot in the guild. So if you can look past those flaws, if you don't care about pay to win, if you're planning on just playing this game as a free-to-play player, so you may get a couple of weeks or maybe even a few months of entertainment out of it. And for an MMO these days, I think that's pretty good value. It's really just going to depend on your personal preference. And I think if you have people to play this game with, that's going to make probably the biggest difference, because as a solo player, I can only imagine how fast you would get burned out playing this game. You know, I was wondering, why is this game called Throne and Liberty anyway? I mean, you're not a feudal lord, you're merely a vassal or a hired goon who's charged with pest removal and janitorial responsibilities in this kingdom. I mean, liberty, your freedom really is, the only freedom you have is granted through gaining more power, so you can overpower your enemies and your opponents. Otherwise, you just remain an obedient little slave person living in the basement of society. In Throne and Liberty, you play as a contestant on a Korean dating game show where your quest is to defeat the other contestants in a series of elimination challenges. The objective of reaching level 55 is tedious and boring and will test your resolve of patience. Your goal is to win the hand of a femme fatale sorceress who will tease and mock you during the courting process in traditional Korean matrimonial practice. We are never really told what the backstory of this woman is, but we can tell by her uncanny appearance that years of reconstructive surgery and exposure to sleep deprivation noises has driven her totally insane.